What's up?
Oh, I'm just compiling all the top sports scores, news, and odds so I can make the very best bets.
Me too. BetOnline.ag.
Join today and receive your 50% welcome bonus at betonline.ag.
Welcome to the Foxborough Report. I'm Alex Barth along with Evan Lazar. This video is powered by betonline.ag. Go to clnsmedia.com/win and use the promo code CLNS50 for 50% cash back. Evan, the Patriots, they don't need a pass catcher in this draft. They need multiple.
That's what we think.
Down a couple of... Okay, well... let's just go right on that.
I'm just saying Belichick has done crazier things in the past than not do what we want him to do, right?
Let me phrase it this way. They need to come away with the draft with multiple pass catchers.
Sure.
If it's trading for players already in the league, so be it. But, you know, Gronk's gone. They lost a number of wide receivers. This is a position, before we get into the names actually, this is a position that they've had trouble drafting in the past, specifically wide receiver. Why do you think that is, and is this year's draft class any different?
So I think that the biggest thing is that we talked about it with Belichick this morning, is that it's very difficult to project what the college offense is going to project in the NFL. A guy that's playing in like an air raid spread system, how are they going to do when Tom Brady goes under center in the I formation? We have no idea, right? So that's one of the big problems with the other two things really is one, the complexity of the Patriots offense with the option routes is very difficult, slows guys down, it hurts their athleticism, and it kind of makes you learn and think on the fly a lot. And also, Tom Brady's not the easiest guy to get into the circle of trust with. You have to really earn that or already be an established receiver like a Brandon Cooks or a Randy Moss or someone like that to kind of earn that quickly. So that's the element of it too, I think. And, you know, I don't know if I'm want to blame Brady because he's got 6 Super Bowls and he seems to do pretty well regardless. But I think that there has to be some element this offseason of if they draft a top receiver, then we need to have some give it from from Brady.
And I think some of it too, to use a car analogy, I feel like we've used a couple of these, you don't put the bottom level gas in a Maserati, right? You have to use that gas that's another $1.50 a gallon. Brady's so good, you have to have a certain amount of talent to play with him. Certainly he makes the guys around him better, but there has to be a floor because he demands so much, and to get the most out of what he's doing, he needs his receivers to play at a certain level. That being said, let's get into some names. Wide receiver first. Not everybody seems to think the Patriots are going to take a wide receiver high. Give me one name on day 1, one name on day 2, one name on day 3.
All right, so I want to give you 2 names on day 1 because I got one that I really like and one I'm worried that they're going to take. All right, so the first name is Deebo Samuel out of South Carolina, who I just think is an absolute stud. He's got some injury concerns, but I'm not too worried about it. And he's really the type of receiver that can play inside, outside, very versatile, and very good with the ball in his hands after the catch. Really fits the Patriots offense very well. I also really like Ole Miss's A.J. Brown. I've really come along from I was a little sour on him in the beginning of the process, but I've watched him a couple of times over now. I like him too. The guy I'm worried that they're going to take is Miles Boykin out of Notre Dame because he just that combine standout.
He screams Dobson.
Screams Dobson, screams Chad Jackson. That's the type of guy that they've gone for in the past that's really hit all of their thresholds from a size, speed standpoint. Miles Boykin, I think he's got a lot of potential. I just don't know if the Patriots offense and Tom Brady is the best guy for him where you have to kind of be patient and work through things with him. And I think that one of the biggest things that the Patriots haven't been able to do with drafting receivers is they haven't really gotten a guy that's been super productive in college and brought him to the system in New England. And Miles Boykin's kind of one of those guys that was okay production in college, but really more about the size, speed, measurables standpoint.
Okay, how about let's do day 2 and day 3 to get if they're going to go late round receiver, if they do bypass receiver in the first couple rounds, who are you looking at, round 4 and on?
Okay, Hunter Renfrow out of Clemson.
Naturally.
Gotta talk about him, right? Absolute dynamite at the top of the route. Really a guy that reminds me a lot of a Danny Amendola or Julian Edelman. Great out of his breaks, extremely savvy in his route running, very smart guy.
Clutch, too.
Clutch. He's going to be an absolute monster in the league on 3rd down. I don't know if he's going to be a guy that's going to catch 100 balls in his career anytime, but he's going to be a guy that is going to be very, very money on 3rd down.
It sounds like Cooper Kupp, kind of.
Yeah, Yeah, it's a little bit like Cooper Kupp. I like that one too. The other one out of West Virginia, David Sills. I know you really like him.
Oh, yeah.
I think that he's an interesting kind of mid-round, third, fourth round type guy as well. He's a former quarterback, which has worked out well for the Patriots with Julian Edelman.
So. Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think that, former quarterbacks maybe have a little bit better understanding of coverage and route concepts and that kind of stuff to really adjust and advance on the fly in an option route type offense. Now, if they're going to go late, and I think this is a very interesting topic of conversation too, is we talked about before, what do they think of Danny Etling? What do they think of Braxton Berrios? Because I think that that's a big part of this as well. But Nick Easley out of Iowa is a slot receiver demon. He is the shifty inside slot receiver guy, a lot like Berrios. He reminds me a lot of that Berrios, Danny Amendola type guy. And the one thing that I like a lot about Easley is that his role at Iowa was identical to the role that he's going to play here in New England if he gets drafted by the Patriots. So there's not as much projection with him as some of these other guys.
And of course, they could take multiple guys in that frame wherever. One quick point on Sills I just like, because it's a good transition into tight ends. See how I did that? We talked about in the last video with the running backs, one of the Patriots' biggest needs to replace, not necessarily a specific position, but what are you doing in the red zone without Rob Gronkowski? Still's a guy who's going to give you a little bit of size.
Yeah.
He can jump a bit, potential red zone threat.
Especially from like the fringe red zone. Like the 20 and in. Yeah. He's great from that 20 to 25 yard range.
That being said, Patriots, I'm sure, would really like to get their red zone production mostly from the tight end position.
Yeah.
And it's a very top-heavy position.
It is.
Really quickly, what are the odds we're looking at one of the Iowa tight ends? Do either of those guys fall to the Patriots?
I think
or a spot where they can trade up to.
So my theory is that if the Patriots are going to make an aggressive move in this draft, 21, the number 21st overall pick from Seattle is up for sale. It's got a big for sale sign on it, and if they move up to that spot, I think they have a chance to draft Noah Fant from Iowa, the tight end, one of those two tight ends. Hawkinson's out of their range. I just don't see it happening. I see him going maybe to Buffalo or Detroit in the top 10 of this draft. So I just don't really think that's realistic. But Noah Fant, I think, is going to fall just a little bit into that like late teens, early 20s range. And if I'm the Patriots, I'm really thinking about being aggressive and using one of those extra third-round picks to move up to 21 and draft your next tight end.
And if they can't do that, the name I really like, because I think the Patriots are going to have to be patient when it comes to tight ends. Tell me about Jace.
Yeah, Jace is my guy, right? I've been mocking Jace Sternberger to the Patriots for months now. He's the type of guy that I think really fits in very well here. He was an absolute seam monster at A&M. Nobody in college football could cover this guy up the seam. That sounds a whole lot like Rob Gronkowski.
That's a tight end favorite here in New England.
Yeah, so the seam routes, yards after the catch. This is a guy that averaged over 8 yards after the catch as a tight end. Big part of the reason why, some great field in the open field, good vision for a tight end, but also he's just a monster, so you got to like bring the bodies to tackle him. He's not necessarily 6'6", 6'7" like Gronk was, but he's 6'4", 250 pounds. You're going to have to bring your hard hat to get him on the ground. That's another big part of his game that I really like. But really, it's the zone ability and it's the seam ability, and those two kind of go hand in hand that he has that I think that makes him a really good fit.
And if they don't get one of those top tight ends, right, this is kind of a top-heavy class, is it even worth it for them, do you think, to explore the position once you get out of those top 4 tight ends?
So there's two guys that have a lot of upside that I think have potential to be good players, but you're going to have to wait on them, and it's Dawson Knox out of Ole Miss and Kahale Warring, who I've really liked for a long time. And Warring is like a true like project player. He had next to no production in college. He didn't play football until he got to college at San Diego State. He was a water polo player, a basketball player, no football experience until
sounds like
college,
something Bill would like.
Right? So that's cool. It's a cool little story. I'm sure if they draft him, you'll hear all about how he was a water polo player. Right? At the same time, I think Dawson Knox is an interesting prospect because all these people now are trying to find the next George Kittle, right? Who's the guy in the 5th round that nobody knows, but is super good athlete and tested really well? That's kind of Dawson Knox. That's also Foster Moreau from LSU. Both of those guys were very underutilized by their offenses. College offenses, watching a lot of these tight ends, don't know how to use tight ends.
Yeah.
They don't know how to use tight ends like the pros. They don't know how to use these guys as matchup weapons, these 6'5", 6'6" monsters that run 4.6s. They got them inline blocking 90% of the time. So they really don't know how to use those tight ends, and it's really not as big of a fit in their system as it is in the pros.
All right. If there are any other pass catcher names you want us to talk about, let us know in the comments down below or on Twitter at Patriots CLNS. This edition of the Fox Bear Report has been brought to you by betonline.ag. Visit clnsmedia.com/win and use the promo code CLNS50. For Evan Lazar, I'm Alex Barth from Gillette Stadium. Thanks for watching.